3 signatures. That was all it took to destroy a 5-year marriage. On a rainy Tuesday in Manhattan, tech mogul Grant Holloway looked at his wife Vivian and saw nothing but a burden. A plain, quiet woman who didn't fit his new life of red carpets and billion-dollar IPOs. He thought he was trading up by leaving her for Sienna Miller, Hollywood's reigning queen. He thought he was discarding a nobody. But Grant didn't check the background report. He didn't know that the woman he just kicked out onto the street wasn't Vivian generic nobody. She was the sole heiress to the Von Hurst Steel dynasty. A fortune that makes the royal family look like they're on a budget. And she was pregnant. This isn't just a divorce. It's a war declaration. The sound of the pen scratching against the parchment was the loudest thing in the room. It sounded like a bone snapping. Inside the 34th floor office of Caldwell & Moore, one of New York City's most ruthless divorce firms, the atmosphere was suffocating. Outside, the gray skyline of Manhattan wept against the glass, a fitting backdrop for the end of a life. Grant Holloway sat in a leather Eames chair that cost more than most people's cars. He checked his watch, a Patek Philippe Nautilus, for the 3rd time in 2 minutes. He was a handsome man, with the kind of sharp, predatory jawline that graced the cover of Forbes and GQ. But today, his face was twisted in a mask of impatience. "Are we done yet?" Grant snapped, tapping his fingers on the mahogany table. "I have a lunch reservation at Le Bernardin in 20 minutes. Sienna hates waiting." Across from him sat Vivian. She looked small in the oversized beige sweater she was wearing. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore 0 makeup. To the outside world, she looked like exactly what Grant said she was: plain. Boring. A relic of his past life before his tech company Halo Stream went public and turned him into a billionaire overnight. Vivian didn't look up. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the pen over the settlement agreement. "Grant," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Are you sure about this? We haven't even tried counseling. We haven't talked about the future." Grant let out a harsh, derisive laugh. He leaned forward, the smell of his expensive cologne, Santal 33, wafting across the table. It used to be a scent that made Vivian feel safe. Now it smelled like betrayal. "Vivian, look at me," Grant said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Look at you, and then look at my life. I'm closing deals with Elon's people. I'm walking red carpets. You're happy knitting on the couch and shopping with coupons. We're in different stratospheres. I need a partner who shines, not a shadow." "I supported you when you were coding in our basement," Vivian said softly. "I paid the rent when Halo Stream was nothing but a dream. And I paid you back." Grant slammed his hand on the table. "I bought you the house in Connecticut. I bought you the Volvo. You're walking away with $1 million, Vivian. Don't act like I'm leaving you destitute. Take the money and go find someone. Simple. Someone like you." The lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, cleared his throat awkwardly. "Mrs. Holloway, if you sign here, you waive all rights to future earnings of Halo Stream and any claim to Mr. Holloway's real estate portfolio acquired after today." Vivian looked at the paper. She wasn't reading the legalese. She was thinking about the doctor's appointment she had gone to just yesterday. 6 weeks. She was 6 weeks pregnant. She had planned to tell Grant tonight over dinner. She had bought a tiny pair of booties. They were currently sitting in her purse right next to her hand. "Grant," she tried one last time, looking him in the eyes, "there's something you need to know. Before I sign this, It changes things. Grant's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his face softened instantly, a look of adoration he hadn't given Vivian in years. It was a text from Sienna Blair, the actress, the woman who was currently on every billboard in Times Square. "Miss you, baby. Hurry up. The paparazzi are already waiting." Grant shoved the phone back into his pocket and glared at Vivian. "Nothing changes things, Vivian. I'm in love with Sienna. She gets me. She understands the pressure of this world. You don't. Whatever you have to say, save it. Just sign the damn papers so we can both move on." Vivian's heart turned to ice. She looked at the man she had loved for 5 years. The man she had nursed through the flu. The man she had believed in when every investor laughed in his face. He wasn't that man anymore. He was a monster in a 3-piece suit. If she told him about the baby now, he would think it was a trap. He would think she was using the child to anchor him, or worse, to get more money. He would drag the child into a custody battle involving lawyers like Caldwell, turning the baby into a PR prop. No, she thought. My child will not be a prop. Vivian's jaw tightened. The sadness in her eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, steely resolve that Grant had never seen before. It was a look that belonged to a boardroom, not a kitchen. "Fine," Vivian said. Her voice was steady. "You want to be free, Grant. You're free." She signed the paper with a flourish. Vivian Halloway. Then she reached into her bag. For a second, Grant flinched as if expecting a weapon. But she simply pulled out her wedding ring, a modest 1-carat diamond from his poor days, and set it on the table. "I don't want the house in Connecticut," she said, standing up. "And I don't want the $1 million. Donate it to charity. I don't want a single penny from you." Grant blinked, genuinely confused. "Don't be dramatic, Vivian. You have no job. You have no family. How are you going to survive?" Vivian pulled her coat tight around her. She looked at Grant, and for the first time, he felt a strange shiver go down his spine. She looked taller. "Don't worry about me, Grant," she said. "You should worry about the weather. I hear a storm is coming." She walked out of the office without looking back. As the heavy glass doors closed, Grant shook his head, laughing. "Crazy, she's absolutely crazy. She'll be back begging for a check in a week." "I wouldn't be so sure," Mr. Caldwell muttered, staring at the signature. "She didn't even ask for alimony. That's unusual." "Who cares?" Grant stood up, buttoning his jacket. "I'm a free man. Time to go meet the future Mrs. Halloway." Outside the building, the rain was pouring. Vivian stepped onto the sidewalk, shivering slightly. She didn't call an Uber. She didn't walk to the subway. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a burner phone, a simple black device she hadn't turned on in 5 years. She dialed a number from memory. It rang once. "Protocol Omega," Vivian said into the phone. "It's time." "Mistress Vivian," a deep British voice answered. It was Alfred, the head of security for the Von Hurst estate. "We have been waiting for this call. Your grandfather, he has been worried." "I know, Alfred. I'm coming home. Send the car." "It is already around the corner, ma'am." 30 seconds later, a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the curb. It didn't have a license plate number. It just had a small silver crest on the bumper, a lion holding a steel beam. The driver, a mountain of a man named Klaus, stepped out with an umbrella shielding Vivian from the rain. "Welcome back, Miss Von Hurst," Klaus said, opening the door. Vivian slid into the leather interior, which smelled of jasmine and old money. She rested her hand on her stomach. "Let's go, Klaus," she whispered. "I have a dynasty to reclaim, and a husband to destroy." 3 months had passed since the divorce. The media was calling it the wedding of the century. Grant Holloway and Sienna Blair were everywhere. They were on the cover of People Vogue and Time. Grant's company Halo Stream was thriving. The stock price had doubled since the announcement of his engagement to Sienna. The narrative was perfect. The tech genius and the Hollywood starlet. A match made in heaven. Grant sat in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, sipping a 30-year-old scotch. Sienna was lounging on the velvet sofa, scrolling through Instagram comments. "Babe, listen to this." Sienna giggled. "Grant Holloway is the ultimate upgrade. His ex-wife must be crying into her cat food right now. God, my fans are savage." Grant smirked. "They aren't wrong. I haven't heard a peep from Vivian. My lawyers said she disappeared, dropped off the face of the earth. Probably moved back to whatever small town in Ohio she came from." "Good riddance," Sienna said, tossing her blonde hair. "She was holding you back. Oh, by the way, did you get the invite to the Obsidian Gala?" Grant froze. The Obsidian Gala. It was the most exclusive event in the global business calendar. It wasn't just a party. It was where the real power brokers met. Presidents, oil tycoons, and the old dynasties. It was hosted by the Von Hearst family, the elusive steel magnates who controlled the infrastructure of half the Western world. Getting an invite to the Obsidian Gala was impossible. You didn't buy a ticket. You were summoned. I didn't think we'd get one," Grant admitted. "The Von Hearsts are notoriously private. Conrad von Hearst hasn't been seen in public in 10 years. "Well, look what arrived," Sienna said, holding up a heavy black envelope embossed with silver. Grant took it, his hands shaking slightly. This was it. This was his entry into the true elite. If he could get Halo Stream partnered with Von Hearst Steel, he wouldn't just be a billionaire. He would be a titan. He would be untouchable. "This is huge, Sienna," Grant said, his eyes gleaming with greed. "This is our chance to secure the government contracts. If I can pitch to the Von Hearst CEO—" "Who is the CEO now?" Sienna asked, bored. "Is it still that old guy?" "Conrad is retired," Grant said, racking his brain. "Rumor has it he passed the torch to a shadow successor a few years ago. No one knows who it is. They call the successor the Iron Lady or something. Supposedly she's been running the empire remotely." "Well, whoever she is, she'll love us," Sienna said, checking her reflection in her phone. "Everyone loves us." Meanwhile, in a sprawling estate in the Swiss Alps, Vivian sat in a sunlit room surrounded by monitors. She looked different. The messy bun was gone, replaced by a sleek, sharp bob. The oversized sweaters were replaced by a tailored Chanel suit that screamed authority. But the most noticeable change was her belly. At nearly 5 months pregnant, the bump was showing. "Status report," she said, her voice crisp. Alfred stood by the screen. "Mr. Holloway has accepted the invitation to the gala, ma'am. As predicted, he sees it as a business opportunity." "Good," Vivian said, taking a sip of herbal tea. "And Sienna. She has already contacted 3 designers for a custom dress. She intends to make a scene." "Let her," Vivian said. "How is Halo Stream doing?" "Stock is at an all-time high. However—" Alfred clicked a button showing a complex web of financial data. "They are over-leveraged. Holloway has borrowed heavily to fund his expansion into Asia. He is banking everything on securing a raw materials partner, specifically us." Vivian smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "He needs steel for his new server farms," Vivian said. He thinks he's walking into the gala to sign a deal. He doesn't realize he's walking into a slaughterhouse. Are you sure you are ready for this, Vivian? A side door opened, and an older man walked in. He leaned on a cane, but his eyes were sharp as hawks. It was Conrad von Hearst, the patriarch. Grandfather, Vivian said, standing up to help him. You are carrying my great-grandchild, Conrad said, gently placing a hand on her arm. Stress is not good for the heir. Are you sure you want to face him? We could just crush his company from here. A few phone calls to the banks and Halloway is bankrupt by noon. Vivian shook her head. No, that's too easy. He humiliated me, grandfather. He made me feel small. He treated me like a disposable object because he thought I had no value. She walked to the window, looking out at the snowy peaks. He needs to see me, Vivian said. He needs to know that the boring wife he discarded is the one holding the keys to his kingdom. I want to see the light leave his eyes when he realizes who I really am. Conrad chuckled darkly. You have your mother's fire. Very well. The gala is in 2 weeks in London. The jet is ready. One more thing, Vivian said, turning back to Alfred. Make sure the press is there. All of them. Not just the business press, the tabloids, the gossip columnists. I want the world to see this. It will be arranged. Alfred bowed. Vivian looked down at her stomach. Don't worry, little one, she whispered. Daddy is going to learn a very important lesson. Never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book owns the library. 2 weeks later, London. The Obsidian Gala was held at the Royal Opera House. It was an event of staggering opulence. Security was tighter than the G7 summit. Limousines lined the streets for blocks. The flash of cameras turned the night into day. Grant and Sienna stepped out of a Maybach. The crowd went wild. Sienna was wearing a dress made entirely of red sequins cut low to her navel. Grant looked dashing in a bespoke Savile Row tuxedo. Mr. Halloway Sienna, the paparazzi screamed. Over here, are the rumors true? Are you buying an island? Grant waved, flashing his $1,000,000 smile. He felt like a god. He whispered to Sienna, Keep smiling. Tonight we conquer the world. They walked up the red carpet and into the grand hall. The room was filled with the elite. There was the CEO of Oilex, the Duke of Westminster, and tech rivals Grant had been trying to crush for years. But the atmosphere was tense. Everyone was whispering. Have you heard? A banker whispered near Grant. Conrad is stepping down officially tonight. He's introducing the new chairman of Von Hearst Steel. I heard it's a recluse, another replied. Grant straightened his tie. Whoever it is, I'll charm them, he told Sienna. The lights in the opera house dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd of 2,000 billionaires. A spotlight hit the center stage. Conrad von Hearst walked out. He looked frail, but his presence commanded absolute silence. Ladies and gentlemen, Conrad's voice boomed through the speakers. For 50 years I have led this family, but the world is changing. It requires new vision, new strength. Grant leaned forward, his heart pounding. Here we go. There have been many rumors about my successor, Conrad continued. Tonight I put those rumors to rest. She has been running our European and Asian operations from the shadows for the last 5 years. She is the brilliant mind behind our renewable energy pivot. Please welcome the new chairwoman and CEO of Von Hearst Enterprises, my granddaughter. The crowd murmured. Granddaughter. No one knew he had a granddaughter. Please welcome, Conrad gestured to the curtain, Vivian von Hearst. The curtain rose. Grant stopped breathing. Sienna dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, but no one noticed. Standing center stage, bathed in white light, was Vivian. She was wearing a gown of midnight blue silk, dripping in diamonds that were family heirlooms worth more than Halo Stream's entire quarterly revenue. She looked regal, powerful, terrifying, and as she stepped forward, her hand resting on her visible baby bump, she looked directly into the camera, broadcasting to the giant screens in the hall. She locked eyes with Grant across the room. She smiled. "Good evening," Vivian said into the microphone. Her voice was smooth, confident, and utterly unrecognizable from the shy woman Grant had divorced. "I hope everyone is having a pleasant evening, especially my ex-husband." The room gasped. Every head turned toward Grant. He felt the blood drain from his face. He felt naked. Vivian continued. "Now let's talk business. I have some announcements regarding who we will, and more importantly, who we will not be doing business with in the coming fiscal year." The silence in the Royal Opera House was absolute. You could hear a diamond drop. Grant Holloway stood frozen. His brain was trying to process the visual information, but the cognitive dissonance was too strong. "Vivian. That's Vivian. The woman who used to clip coupons for laundry detergent. The woman who cried when he forgot her birthday. Standing on that stage, she looked like a goddess of vengeance. Sienna Blair was the first to react. She grabbed Grant's arm, her nails digging into his tuxedo. "Grant!" she hissed, her voice trembling with panic. Is that her?" "You said she was a nobody. You said she was poor. I didn't know." Grant stammered, his face pale as a sheet. On stage, Vivian didn't break eye contact with him. The camera crews, sensing the drama, had located Grant in the crowd. His face, sweaty, terrified, and confused, was now projected on the massive 40-foot screen behind Vivian, right next to her composed, elegant face. "As I was saying," Vivian continued, her voice echoing through the hall, "Von Hurst Steel values integrity. We value loyalty, and we value transparency." She began to pace the stage, her movements graceful. "For the past 6 months, we have been auditing potential partners for our rare earth metal supply chain. One company in particular has been very aggressive in seeking our partnership." She paused. "Halo Stream." The name hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Grant felt his knees buckle. "However," Vivian said, her tone hardening, "we have found that the leadership of Halo Stream lacks the moral compass required to work with the Von Hurst family. Therefore, effective immediately, Von Hurst Enterprises is placing a global embargo on supplying steel or raw materials to Halo Stream and any of its subsidiaries." A collective gasp ripped through the room. This was a death sentence. Without Von Hurst Steel, Grant couldn't build his new server farms. Without the server farms, he couldn't fulfill his contracts. Halo Stream would effectively be paralyzed. "Furthermore," Vivian added, twisting the knife, "we are liquidating our holdings in the tech sector to invest in competitors who value family." Grant lunged forward, pushing past a waiter. "Vivian! You can't do this!" he shouted. It was a mistake. A massive mistake. He had broken the cardinal rule of high society: never lose your cool. Security guards, massive men wearing earpieces, stepped in Grant's path instantly. Vivian stopped. She looked down at him from the stage, her expression one of mild amusement. "Miss Holloway," she said into the mic, "do you have a question, or are you just eager to sign another divorce paper?" The crowd laughed. It was a cruel high society laugh. They were witnessing a public execution, and they loved it. "Vivian, please," Grant shouted, desperate. "We need to talk. You're pregnant. Is it? He pointed at her stomach. Vivian placed a protective hand over her bump. She leaned into the microphone, her voice dropping to a whisper that thundered through the speakers. "This child?" she asked. "This child is a Von Hurst, and luckily for him, he will never know a father who values a magazine cover over a marriage." She turned her back on him. "Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the evening." She walked off stage to thunderous applause. Grant stood there, ruined. Sienna looked at him with pure disgust. She pulled her arm away. "You idiot," Sienna spat. "You told me she was trash. She just destroyed us. Do you know what this does to my brand? Sienna, wait. Don't touch me," Sienna shrieked. "I'm not sinking with you." She turned and stormed out of the hall, leaving Grant alone in the center of the room, surrounded by 2,000 people who were now looking at him like he was a contagious disease. 1 hour later. The VIP lounge. Vivian sat on a velvet couch, her feet resting on an ottoman. She was exhausted, but the adrenaline was keeping her going. The door opened. It was Mr. Caldwell Grant's lawyer. He looked significantly less arrogant than he had 3 months ago. He was sweating. Miss Von Hurst," Caldwell stammered, bowing slightly. I didn't realize." "Sit down, Caldwell," Vivian said, not looking up from her tea. Caldwell sat on the edge of the chair. "Grant is outside. He's in a state. He wants to speak with you. He says he has rights, paternal rights." Vivian laughed. It was a genuine laugh this time. "He signed those rights away, Caldwell. Remember the document, waive all claims to future assets. My child is my greatest asset." "But biological connection." "Listen to me closely," Vivian said, leaning forward. Her eyes were like steel. "Grant doesn't want the baby. He wants the leverage. He wants back into the inner circle. Tell him this. If he tries to sue for custody, I will release the dossier." Caldwell swallowed. "The dossier?" "My security team has been very thorough," Vivian said. "We know about the offshore accounts in the Caymans he used to hide assets during our divorce. We know about the bribes he paid to the zoning commissioners in California. We have the receipts, Caldwell." She slid a black USB drive across the table. "Give this to him. Tell him if he ever mentions my name or my child's name again, this goes to the FBI. And tell him." Vivian smiled. "Tell him I hope the lunch at Le Bernardin was worth it." Caldwell grabbed the USB drive and ran out of the room. Vivian sighed and leaned back. The door opened again. This time it wasn't a lawyer. It was Liam. Liam was the Von Hurst's chief legal counsel. He was 35, with messy dark hair and eyes that were always kind. He had been Vivian's childhood friend before she ran away to live a normal life. He was the one who had helped her hide her identity for years. "That was brutal," Liam said, handing her a bottle of water. "Remind me never to cross you." "He deserved it," Vivian said, her voice softening. "He did." Liam agreed. He sat next to her. "But are you okay? That was a lot of stress for the baby." "I'm fine, Liam. Actually, I feel free. For the first time in years, I don't have to hide who I am." Liam looked at her, a lingering affection in his eyes. "You never had to hide from me, Viv." Vivian looked at him. She saw the stability, the loyalty, and the warmth that Grant had never possessed. "I know," she whispered. "So," Liam said, checking his phone. "Grant's stock has dropped 40% in the last hour. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. They're going to oust him, Viv. You didn't just hurt him. You killed his career." "Not yet," Vivian said. The career is dead. Now I need to make sure he understands what it feels like to be truly alone. Part 1 is complete. Now begins Part 2, the dismantling. The following morning, New York. Grant landed in New York. He hadn't slept. He checked his phone. Halo Stream Board of Directors. Emergency meeting, 9:00 a.m. He had 50 missed calls from Sienna. He called her back. "Sienna, baby, I can fix this." "Don't call me baby," Sienna screamed. "My agent just dropped me. They say I'm associated with toxic assets." "You're the toxic asset, Grant. And guess what? I'm speaking to TMZ in an hour. I'm telling them everything. How you mocked her. How you hid money. I'm playing the victim, Grant. It's the role of a lifetime." Click. Grant stared at the phone. He was shaking. He walked out of the airport. His driver wasn't there. He called his driver. "Where are you?" "Sorry, Mr. Holloway," the driver said. "The company credit card was declined. I had to return the car to the garage." Grant stood on the curb at JFK. It was raining again, just like the day of the divorce. He looked for a taxi, but the line was huge. He was a billionaire on paper, standing in the rain with no ride, no wife, no mistress, and a company that was burning to the ground. And somewhere in Europe, Vivian von Hurst was sleeping soundly in silk sheets, dreaming of a future that no longer included him. The downfall of Grant Holloway was not a slow burn. It was a wildfire. 3 days after the Obsidian Gala, the world turned its eyes to the television screens. It was 8:00 p.m. prime time. The show was Elena Live, the most watched interview program in America. Grant sat in his office at Halo Stream. The lights were off. Most of the staff had already packed up their desks, sensing the impending bankruptcy. He stared at the TV mounted on the wall, a bottle of cheap whiskey on his desk. The expensive scotch was gone. On the screen, Sienna Blair sat on a beige sofa, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. She looked fragile. She was wearing a modest white dress, a stark contrast to the red sequin number from London. She looked like a victim. "Sienna," the host Elena said, softly leaning in. "You were engaged to Grant Holloway. You were there when he divorced his pregnant wife. Did you know? Did you know Vivian was pregnant?" Sienna looked up, her blue eyes swimming with practiced tears. "No," Sienna sobbed. "I had no idea. Elena, you have to believe me. Grant, he's a master manipulator. He told me his marriage was over years ago. He told me Vivian was unstable. He said he was trapped in an abusive relationship. I thought I was saving him." Grant threw his whiskey glass at the wall. It shattered, leaving a wet amber stain on the plaster. "Liar!" Grant screamed at the empty room. "You begged me to leave her. You picked out the divorce lawyer." On the screen, Sienna continued her performance. "When I saw Vivian on that stage, when I saw her belly, I felt sick, physically sick. I realized I had been used. Grant used me for my fame. He used Vivian for her support. He's a monster. And I am so sorry to Vivian. I hope she can forgive me." Elena nodded sympathetically. "And what about the rumors that Grant is facing an SEC investigation?" "I can't speak to legal matters," Sienna said, looking down. "But I know he destroyed documents. I saw him shredding files the night before we left for London. I tried to stop him, but I was scared." Grant froze. She was planting evidence. She was framing him to ensure she came out smelling like a rose while he rotted in prison. Grant's phone rang. It was the only person left who would speak to him, Rex Vargo. Rex was a lawyer, but not the high-rise glass office kind, like Caldwell. Rex's office was above a falafel shop in Queens. He was the kind of lawyer you hired when you had no soul left to sell. "Did you see it?" Rex asked, his voice raspy from years of chain smoking. "She's lying, Rex," Grant hissed. "She's burying me." "It doesn't matter if she's lying," Rex said. "The public believes her. The stock is down 70%. The board is meeting tomorrow morning to vote you out as CEO. You're done, Grant. Unless what? "Unless we change the narrative," Rex said. "Right now, you're the villain, the billionaire who kicked a pregnant woman to the curb. We need to make you the victim. We need to make Vivian the villain." "How?" Grant asked. "She's a saint. She's a Von Hurst. She's a woman who hid her identity for 5 years, Rex said. "Why? What was she hiding? Maybe she was spying on you. Maybe she stole your tech to give to her family. And the baby? Are you sure it's yours?" Grant paused. "Of course it's mine. We were trying for months." "Doesn't matter," Rex said. "We file a motion. We demand a paternity test. We claim she committed corporate espionage. We sue her for fraud. We make it messy. The Von Hurst family hates mess. They value privacy. Privacy above all else. If we throw enough mud, they might pay you a settlement just to make you go away." Grant looked at the shattered glass on the floor. He had nothing left to lose. He had lost his wife, his lover, his reputation, and soon his company. "Do it," Grant whispered. "Burn it all down." Meanwhile, in the Von Hurst penthouse, London, Vivian turned off the TV. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. Liam Prescott, her childhood friend and legal counsel, stood by the window watching the rain fall over London. "Sienna is good," Liam admitted. "She should get an Oscar for that performance." "Let her have the public sympathy," Vivian said, rubbing her temples. "She's a survivor. I don't care about Sienna. I care about Halo Stream. What's the status?" "The board is panicked," Liam said, turning to face her. "They are desperate for a buyer. They want to oust Grant, but they have no capital to pivot. The creditors are circling." "Perfect," Vivian said. "Prepare the shell company, Phoenix Ventures. Make an offer to buy the majority stake in Halo Stream at $12 a share." $12, Liam laughed. "It was trading at $150 last week. That's robbery." "It's mercy," Vivian corrected. "If I don't buy it, they go bankrupt. I'm saving the employees' jobs. I'm just removing the cancer at the top." Liam walked over and sat next to her. He noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "Viv, you need to slow down," he said gently. "You're 7 months pregnant. Stress causes cortisol spikes. It's bad for the baby." "I can't slow down, Liam. Not until he's gone." "Why?" Liam asked, searching her eyes. "You've already won. He's ruined. Why do you need to crush him into dust?" Vivian looked away. "Because he made me believe I was nothing. For 5 years, Liam, I dimmed my light so he could shine. I cooked his meals. I washed his clothes. I listened to his pitches. And the moment he got a taste of power, he threw me away like garbage. I need to make sure he never has the power to hurt anyone else again." Liam sighed. He reached out and took her hand. His hand was warm, strong. "Just remember," Liam said softly. "You don't have to do it alone anymore. I'm here. Alfred is here. Your grandfather is here." Vivian looked at their joined hands. For a moment, the steel heiress facade cracked, and she was just a frightened woman about to become a mother. "Thank you, Liam," she whispered. Suddenly her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She picked it up. "Vivian." It was Grant. His voice sounded jagged, broken. "Grant," she said coldly, "you're violating the restraining order." "I don't care," Grant spat. "I just wanted you to know. I filed the paperwork. I'm suing you for paternity fraud. I'm suing you for corporate espionage. I'm going to drag your name through the mud, Vivian. I'm going to make the world wonder whose baby that really is." Vivian felt a cold spike of fear. Not for herself, but for the child. The media scrutiny would be intense. "You're pathetic," she said. "I'm desperate," Grant replied, "and a desperate man is a dangerous man. See you in court, honey." He hung up. Vivian dropped the phone. She clutched her stomach as a sharp pain radiated through her abdomen. "Viv," Liam jumped up. "What is it?" "Pain," she gasped. It's too early. I'm only 30 weeks. Liam didn't hesitate. He scooped her up in his arms, shouting for the security team. "Alfred, get the car. We're going to the hospital, now." The drive to St. Mary's Hospital was a blur of rain and sirens. Alfred drove the Rolls-Royce like a tank weaving through London traffic. In the back seat, Liam held Vivian's hand, timing her breathing. "It's okay," Liam soothed, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Just Braxton Hicks. False alarm. It has to be." "It hurts, Liam," Vivian cried out, gripping his hand so hard her knuckles turned white. "It's not supposed to hurt like this." As they sped through an intersection, a flash of light blinded them. Paparazzi. Grant had tipped them off. He knew where she was staying. A swarm of motorcycles and vans had been trailing them since they left the penthouse, buzzing around the Rolls-Royce like angry hornets. "Get them away from us!" Liam shouted to the front. "I am trying, sir," Alfred yelled. "They are cutting me off." One of the paparazzi on a motorbike swerved too close, trying to get a shot of the billionaire heiress in distress. The bike clipped the front bumper of the Rolls-Royce. Alfred slammed on the brakes to avoid crushing the cyclist. The heavy car skidded on the wet pavement. It spun 180 degrees, the tires screeching like banshees before slamming into a guardrail. The impact was jarring. The airbags deployed with a deafening pop. Silence. "Vivian," Liam coughed, waving away the white powder from the airbag. "Vivian." Vivian was slumped against the door, unconscious. A small trickle of blood ran down her temple. "Open the door!" Liam screamed, kicking at the jammed lock. Alfred, dazed but functional, ripped the driver's side door open and ran around. With his immense strength, he wrenched the back door open. The paparazzi didn't help. They kept snapping photos. "Flash, flash, flash! Get back!" Alfred roared, pulling a baton from his coat. "Back, or I will break every bone in your bodies." Liam unbuckled Vivian. She groaned, her eyes fluttering open. "The baby," she whispered. "My baby." 2 hours later, St. Mary's Hospital. Grant Holloway sat in the dark office of Rex Vargo. The TV was on. Breaking news. Pregnant steel heiress Vivian von Hurst involved in car crash following paparazzi pursuit. Condition unknown. Grant stared at the screen. His stomach dropped. I didn't mean for this to happen," Grant stammered. "I just told them where she was. I just wanted to scare her." Rex Vargo lit a cigarette, unbothered. "Collateral damage, Grant. This plays well for us. Shows she's reckless. Endangered the child." "Are you insane?" Grant stood up, knocking his chair over. "She could be dead. My child could be dead." "And if they are?" Rex shrugged. "You're the next of kin for the child. If the baby survives and she doesn't, you get custody. You get access to the Von Hurst Trust Fund. Grant looked at the lawyer. For the first time, he saw the true reflection of his own greed. It was ugly. It was rot. "You're a sick man," Grant whispered. "I'm the man you hired." Rex smiled, showing yellow teeth. Grant grabbed his coat. "I'm going to London." "You can't," Rex laughed. "Your passport was flagged this morning. The SEC frozen your assets. You're not going anywhere, Grant. You're stuck here in the mess you made." Grant sank to the floor, putting his head in his hands. He wept. Not for Vivian. Not for the baby. But for himself. St. Mary's Hospital. Private wing. Vivian woke up to the sound of a steady beep. She looked around. White walls, flowers, and Liam sleeping in a chair next to her bed, his head resting on her mattress. She moved her hand. Liam woke up instantly. "Viv, you're awake. The baby," she rasped. "He's fine." Liam smiled, tears in his eyes. "Stress-induced labor scare. The crash caused a mild concussion, but the airbag saved you. The doctors stopped the contractions. You need strict bed rest for the next 8 weeks, but the baby is strong. His heartbeat is like a drum." Vivian let out a long breath she didn't know she was holding. She looked at Liam. He looked terrible, disheveled, bruised, exhausted. "You were there," she said softly. "You saved me." "I'll always be there," Liam said. He hesitated, then leaned in. "Viv, when that car spun, all I could think about was that I hadn't told you." "Told me what?" "That I've been in love with you since we were 12 years old," Liam said, his voice shaking. "When you ran off to marry Grant, it broke me. But I waited. I just wanted you to be happy. But I can't watch you get hurt anymore. I love you, Viv. Not because you're a Von Hurst, but because you're you." Vivian stared at him. The man who had been her rock, the man who sat in a plastic chair all night while her ex-husband plotted her destruction. She reached out and touched his cheek. "I think," Vivian whispered, "I think I've been looking at the wrong kind of strength. Grant was flashy. He was loud. But you're steel, Liam. You hold everything up." Liam kissed her hand. It wasn't a passionate Hollywood kiss. It was a promise. "Rest now," Liam said. "I have a company to buy." "Is the deal done?" Vivian asked, her business mode flickering back on. "The board accepted the offer from Phoenix Ventures an hour ago." Liam grinned. "They have no idea it's us. They think Phoenix is a German conglomerate. The transfer of power is scheduled for tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. Vivian smiled, closing her eyes. "Good. Make sure Grant is in the building when the new owner arrives." The next morning, HaloStream headquarters, New York. Grant Holloway stormed through the glass doors of HaloStream. He looked ragged, unshaven, his suit wrinkled from sleeping on his office couch. He ignored the pitying looks from the reception staff and marched straight to the elevator. He had to fix this. He convinced himself that the new owner's Phoenix Ventures would listen to reason. He was the founder. He was the visionary. They needed him. Grant burst into the main conference room. The entire board of directors was seated looking uncomfortable. But the man at the head of the table wasn't a German conglomerate representative. It was Liam Prescott. Vivian's childhood friend sat in the CEO's chair, wearing a sharp navy suit and an expression of ice-cold professionalism. "Liam!" Grant laughed, a desperate, confused sound. "What are you doing here? Get out of my seat." "Sit down, Grant," Liam said calmly. not looking up from a stack of files. "We aren't here to negotiate. We're here to evict." "You can't evict me," Grant sneered, slamming his hand on the table. "I have a contract. If you terminate me, I get a $20 million golden parachute." Liam finally looked up. He slid a single red folder across the mahogany table. "Clause 14, Section B," Liam recited from memory. "Gross moral turpitude. If the CEO engages in conduct that irreparably damages the brand or endangers human life, all severance is voided." Liam tossed a tabloid onto the table. The headline screamed, "Billionaire tips off paparazzi causes crash of pregnant ex-wife." "The board has voted," Liam said, his voice hard. "Leaking Vivian's location resulted in a near-fatal accident. You endangered the life of your own child for a PR stunt. That is cause for immediate termination." Grant felt the blood drain from his face. I didn't mean for them to crash." "It doesn't matter," Liam cut him off. "You're fired, Grant, and since you used company funds to pay your divorce attorney, we're also suing you for embezzlement. Security is packing a box for you. It's a small box." Grant looked around the room. The men he had made rich refused to meet his eyes. "You planned this," Grant whispered, staring at Liam with hatred. "We didn't plan for you to be a monster, Grant," Liam replied evenly. "You did that on your own. Now get out." Grant turned and walked out of the room, his legs feeling like lead. As the elevator doors closed, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Sienna. "My lawyer says I can sue you for emotional distress. Don't contact me again." Grant let out a broken, manic laugh as the elevator plummeted to the ground floor. He had lost everything. 2 months later, London. The private delivery room was quiet, save for the sound of labored breathing. Vivian gripped Liam's hand so hard, her knuckles turned white. "I can't," Vivian cried, sweat matting her dark hair. "I'm too tired, Liam." "Yes, you can," Liam whispered, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "You faced down a boardroom of sharks. You took down an empire. You are the Iron Lady, remember? You can do this." Vivian looked into Liam's warm brown eyes. She found the strength she thought she had lost. With one final primal scream, she pushed. The room was filled with the sharp, beautiful cry of a newborn. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, placing the wailing infant on Vivian's chest. Tears streamed down Vivian's face as she held the tiny, slippery body close. He had 10 perfect fingers and 10 perfect toes. "He's perfect," she sobbed. The door opened, and Conrad von Hurst wheeled himself in. The old patriarch looked at his great-grandson, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. "The heir," Conrad whispered. "What is his name?" Vivian looked down at her son. She wanted a name that meant strength, but also kindness, something his father lacked. "Leo," Vivian said softly. "His name is Leo." "And the father?" the nurse asked, holding a clipboard for the birth certificate. Vivian hesitated. "Put down Grant Holloway," Vivian said firmly. "My son deserves to know the truth. He deserves to know exactly who he should never become." She squeezed Liam's hand. "But he will have a father figure, one who knows what it means to be a real man." Liam kissed her hand, a silent promise sealing the moment. Grant Holloway sat in a greasy diner in New Jersey. He was working as a consultant for a logistics firm, now boring, low-paying work. The TV in the corner flashed a breaking news banner, "Von Hurst, heir born." "Vivian von Hurst welcomes baby boy." Grant stared at the screen. The footage showed Vivian leaving the hospital looking radiant. Walking beside her, carrying the car seat like a protective shield, was Liam. Grant squinted, trying to see the baby's face through the grainy screen, but the camera cut away. A hollow ache settled in his chest. That was his son. That was his legacy. And he would never teach him to catch a ball. He would never hear his first word. "You okay, Hon?" the waitress asked, dropping a check for 12 hours and 50 sats on his table. "You look like you saw a ghost." Grant looked at the bill. He had to check his banking app to make sure he could cover it. "Yeah," Grant said, his voice cracking. "Just thinking about a life I used to have." He paid the bill and walked out into the cold, grey afternoon. Nobody looked at him. Nobody knew his name. He was finally, truly, a nobody. 5 years later. New York City never sleeps, but it does forget. In the high-speed world of finance, the name Grant Holloway had evaporated. Once a titan on the cover of Forbes, he was now just a shadow in a polyester uniform. Grant adjusted his name tag. He was 42 but looked 50, his face puffy from cheap food and regret. He worked the night shift at the Pierre, parking the luxury cars he used to own. It was a cruel irony. The man who once aimed for the stars was now kneeling on the pavement to check tire pressure. "Hey buddy, eyes on the road," a young tech CEO snapped, tossing his keys at Grant. "Don't scratch the Aston." Grant caught the keys, swallowing his pride. "Yes, sir." He walked back to the entrance just as the event board lit up the Global Clean Energy Summit. Keynote speaker Vivian von Hurst. Grant froze. He knew she was in town. She was businesswoman of the decade, having turned the von Hurst steel empire into a green energy juggernaut. He hadn't seen her since the divorce office. "Holloway, look sharp," his manager hissed. "VIP convoy inbound." A line of black armored SUVs flanked by police motorcycles pulled up. Grant stood by the curb, his feet rooted to the concrete. The back door of the lead vehicle opened. First, a man stepped out, tall, wearing a bespoke charcoal suit, radiating quiet power. It was Liam Prescott. He wasn't just the lawyer anymore. He was the COO of Phoenix von Hurst, and the man standing firmly by Vivian's side. Liam turned, offering his hand. Vivian stepped out. Time had been merciful. She was more beautiful now than at 25. She wore a white pantsuit that glowed under the hotel lights, carrying herself with the air of a queen. She didn't look like a victim. She looked unstoppable. Then the final blow. A little boy hopped out after her. 5 years old, dark, curly hair, and bright, inquisitive eyes. Leo. Grant felt like he had been punched in the gut. The biological reality was undeniable. The boy had Grant's nose. This was his son, his legacy. "Daddy, look," Leo shouted, pointing at the fountain. "Can we throw a penny in?" Grant's heart soared. "Daddy." But Leo wasn't looking at him. He was looking at Liam. Liam laughed, scooping the boy up effortlessly. "Not tonight, Leo. We have to go inside and hear Mom change the world. But if you're good ice cream after." "Yay!" Leo cheered, wrapping his arms around Liam's neck. Grant stood there, a statue of regret. He watched Vivian adjust Leo's tie, smiling at Liam, with the kind of pure, unadulterated adoration she used to save for Grant. As the family moved toward the revolving doors, Grant took an involuntary step forward. "Vivian," he croaked. It was barely a whisper, but Vivian paused. She turned her head. Her eyes scanned the line of valets. Her gaze swept over the young CEO, the doorman, and then settled on Grant. For a second, the world stopped. Grant waited for the anger. He waited for her to scream, to have security drag him away, anything to prove he still mattered. But there was no anger. There was nothing. Her eyes slid over him as if he were part of the architecture. A lamp post, a fire hydrant, a valet in a cheap suit. There was zero recognition. To her, he was a stranger. She turned back to Liam. "Ready, my love?" "Ready," Liam said, placing a protective hand on her back. They walked into the warmth of the lobby, the glass doors spinning shut behind them. Grant was left on the cold sidewalk, clutching a stranger's keys, somewhere in Hollywood. In a dimly lit apartment, Sienna Blair sat on a sagging couch. She was 32 but looked older. Her comeback reality show had been cancelled after 3 episodes, and her makeup line had failed. She was currently waiting for a callback for a hemorrhoid cream commercial. She watched the live stream on her phone. Vivian von Hurst was taking the podium to thunderous applause. Sienna took a sip of cheap wine and turned the screen off. The silence in her apartment was deafening. She had traded her soul for 15 minutes of fame, and the clock had run out years ago. Inside the Pierre Hotel, Grand Ballroom, Vivian stood at the podium looking out at 2,000 of the world's most powerful people. In the front row, Liam held Leo, who was coloring in a book oblivious to his mother's fame. 5 years ago, Vivian began, her voice ringing clear. I stood at a crossroads. I thought my life was over. I had lost my marriage. I was about to be a single mother. She paused, locking eyes with Liam. But steel is forged in fire. It is the heat that makes it strong. I learned that true value isn't found in stock prices or magazine covers. It is found in loyalty, in integrity, in the people who stand by you when the rain starts to fall. The crowd erupted in a standing ovation. Vivian walked off stage, bypassing the hands of senators and billionaires. She went straight to her husband and son. "Did you do good, Mama?" Leo asked. "I did my best, Leo," she said, kissing his forehead. "Can we go home now?" Liam asked softly. "Alfred has the car out back." "Yes." Vivian smiled, leaning into him. "Let's go home." They slipped out the back exit, avoiding the press and the noise. As the car drove away toward their quiet brownstone, Vivian looked out the window one last time. She saw a valet standing on the curb, shivering in the cold. She didn't recognize him. She rested her head on Liam's shoulder. She was safe. She was loved. And finally, she was free. And that is the story of Vivian von Hurst and Grant Holloway. A brutal reminder that when you trade a diamond for a glittery stone, you end up with dust. Grant learned too late that true value isn't found in appearance, but in character. While he froze in the cold of his own making, Vivian proved that the ultimate revenge isn't anger, it's happiness. She built an empire and a family, leaving the man who broke her completely behind. If you think Grant got exactly what he deserved, smash that. Like button right now. Question for the comments. Should Vivian ever let Grant see his son, or did he forfeit that right forever when he chose fame over family? Let me know your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Next week we have a crazy story about a CEO who fires his janitor, only to realize the janitor owns the building. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.